I'm undulating, just like John Gwynne, who used that word, I think, 200 times in this novel. Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video, I will be discussing Ruin, the third book in the Faithful and the Fallen series by John Gwynne. And man, am I excited to have finally read this one. So, Ruin, like I said, is book 3, and this really shoots out and just starts going right where Valor left off. And Valor itself was a book that really had picked up the pace. Malice was a little slow for me, but the setup has been definitely worth it so far. I'm actually almost half done with Wrath at this point. Well, I guess not quite almost half, but I'm nearly there. So this is gonna be a spoiler discussion about Ruin, but I will make sure I don't mention anything that happens in Wrath. The ending of Ruin is pretty hard to forget, so I don't think that should be much of an issue. But yeah, Malice was a little slower. Valor really picked things up. We had a ton going on. We had quite a lot of resolution even there, with the fact that, Calidus is able to summon 1,000 Catachem to take the bodies of the Jahar, who were tricked into thinking that Nether was the bright star and that Calidus was Ben Elam. So Nether has found out the truth. He knows that he is actually the Black Sun, and that Calidus is a Catachem, and that in general he's on the evil side. And we start kind of the scrambling. We saw Queen Rin take over huge amounts of territory. And the end of Valor had a lot of our characters fleeing, trying to escape, and then figure out what to do next. So we are split up. We, of course, have lots of POVs, and there are a ton of characters. I'm not going to be able to mention everybody specifically, or I'd be talking for a couple of hours. So I'm going to talk more about the high-level points, the things I really loved. And there's still plenty to talk about in this book. So we get the warband with Corbin and Michael and Gar and the other Jahar, along with Corbin's friends, Corlin and Tywin and everyone else. And they're traveling and trying to figure out what to do. They pretty quickly get into some skirmishes. I did absolutely love the trick with the scarecrows, where they ended up sneaking past their enemy and tricking them, and then stealing the boats and then sailing away. And we had them where Corbin really wanted to go after Idana, who was going to be heading, toward Dunkrin, and they were trying to. He wanted to go do that because he had made an oath to try and help her, but circumstances dictate that he's going to need to go to Drassel, and that is where there is already another of the 7 treasures, which are becoming more and more in play. More of them have been revealed at the beginning of Ruin. So they end up traveling to Drassel, which they run into plenty of issues along the way, but something I really liked with the way that Ruin is handled is we had a lot of bad things happen in Valor, and we have a lot of bad things that happen in Ruin too, but we get all of this sense of triumph. We see not just Corbin's group, but the other group with Idana and Camlin, and several other characters there as well. They're succeeding, things are going well, and then all of that leads up to just the crazy ending of Ruin. And I know it's a little early to talk about the ending, but I'm just kind of going as it flows. But we have all of these successes. We do get to see some characters die, which was very nice, because we get Braith finally gets killed by Camlin. We get to see Jael killed by Macon, both extremely satisfying, especially Jael, because, man, I hated Jael. I was so happy to see him die. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed that, and Macon's one of my favorite characters, so I of course wanted him to get his revenge. But we get all these successes, these moments of hope, and then we get to the ending where Calidus and the Thair and the Catachem and giants and this whole mass of people discover the tunnels that lead to Drassel and come in and just start killing. And we get peak characters die. We have a lot of them escape. And then, of course, we have Storm, who is mortally wounded at the end of Ruin. And it was pretty rough. I'd heard everybody talking about how Ruin had the ending will just like, really hurt you. And I feel like John Gwynne has done a really good job with that. We had some other really notable deaths too, like Tuchel at Graham's Hold, which was a rough one too, especially for Gar. But it's just, especially in book 3, because I love the characters. We have these different groups of found family between Corbin and his friends, but also with Camlin, who's another character that I really enjoy, and him and his camaraderie with even the most unlikely of people, including, we have the young girl Meg, who they find in the village, and you have him kind of taking this leadership role with Idana's band, and he doesn't really know how to feel about it, but he's been a great character. Corbin and Dath and Farrell and Corlin and all of them too. Them working together, and we do get also Alcyon. We get to finally see some movement with him because of the fact that Veratus. One of the big things here, and Veratus' character I really, really liked, and so I hated that he was on the bad side. But we get to see him as well change sides after Nether finally tells him basically that he's the Black Sun and that he's on the side of Azeroth, and explains it to him, which I did think was interesting, because even in the first book, there was some of those like seeds of doubt that were thrown, and I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out, but just explains to him that, well, of course, everybody thinks the Kadashim are bad and the Ben Elam are good, because, it was the winners who wrote it all. It's the same way humanity wrote that all the giants were evil because they were fighting a war with them, and kind of explains that way. And there does honestly seem to be some truth to that, because especially in Ruin, you really see Michael being pretty ruthless and really just being single-minded in what he wants to do. And you start to think like, these are both these other beings. They're fighting a war with them, and they're using humanity, but neither side really tends to, or seems to at least, care much about the humans that they're using for the most part. Coming to the revelation, which I absolutely loved, and it did really make so many things in book 1 make so much more sense. But the fact that Michael made the whole prophecy up. There is no bright star, there is no black sun. It was a way to trick Azeroth into trying to follow the prophecy and take advantage of that, and go in a predictable route so that the Ben Elam could win. And that honestly is just, for one, it's fantastic. It does explain some of the other things that had happened and some of the issues. And it does also go back to where it seemed like it could almost, in a way, be either or who was going to be who, because of the fact that neither role is really real, and it's all just about the pawns that were chosen. And Corbin, of course, does not take that well at all, which leads to him storming off and then being captured by the Jotun as Drassil's falling. But back to Veratus, because that is who I was talking about before I got my tangent about the whole prophecy and everything. But I felt like he didn't honestly actually get to do that much in Ruin. He was very important, but unfortunately he seemed to just be more of a plot convenience. Like, you needed the one good guy in the bad guy's camp to come and do something, like free some prisoners or stop torture from happening. Like, Veratus is there, and he's got you, because Veratus is a great guy, but he didn't seem to do a whole lot, so I'm really hoping to get more of him in Wrath, and with him now joining basically the side of Elyon and going to fight with all the people who are fighting for Corbin. I'm guessing that we will get some really good scenes, I hope, between him and Nether. So I'm looking forward to that. He felt like he was a little underutilized as well. But just, there were so many scenes, so many battles. The way John Gwynne writes action is just fantastic. We've got fights with giants on bears. We, of course, still have Storm. We have the evolving tactics as the fighters start using ranged weapons more, including bow and arrow, throwing axes, throwing knives, Cywin teaching more people to use it. You do have kind of the love interests developing a little bit more, with Dath ending up marrying one of the Jahar. Corbin still not really in this book realizing that Corlin likes him and that he likes her because he's too nervous. But you get Macon ending up with Fidel, which that one especially, it just you could absolutely tell it was going there and it made sense. I was really afraid they were going to try and do something like that with Camlin and Idana, and at least it hasn't happened so far, and I hope it doesn't, because that'd be kind of weird because of the age gap. But I think that was more so because that plot line was happening parallel, and it was so obvious it was happening with Macon and Fidel. So I don't really think that's going to happen. But Camlin Moore is just like he's taking this leadership role that he's not been comfortable with, but doing a great job with it. And you get a lot of close calls. You do have some character doubts, but you get so many close calls. And that's the thing when you're reading Faithful and the Fallen, you like John Gwynne will straight up kill characters. He absolutely will. You know, you had Corbin's and Simon's parents were killed. You had other main characters killed. You had Tuchel killed in this book, and not afraid to kill characters so that you really feel the danger whenever the characters are in trouble. And we so far most of my favorite characters have stuck around, but it is really hard to know, and I feel like Wrath is going to uh, potentially have a lot more character deaths, so that'll be interesting to see. But I feel like Gwynne has a great balance between knowing when to kill off characters to show that, hey, the stakes are real, anything can happen, but also like leaving you with your favorite characters, usually in at least plausible way. Like people get pretty serious injuries and sometimes recover. And you get that too. And this book really gives you some of, like I said, the deaths that you want to see. The good guys winning, the bad guys dying, battles won in interesting ways against the odds, that really the good versus evil, that classic fantasy feel. It gives you that. And then it ends with the bad guys completely taking over Drasil and crushing most of the resistance, with still once again a lot of our characters escaping. But even freaking Michael dies. Like Michael, the Ben Elam, who's been pulling the strings the whole time with this whole prophecy, even he can die. And he's a Ben Elam, so he's not like dead, but still, it's you don't necessarily know what's going to happen. And that's pretty great as well. So like I said, I'm happy that my favorite characters are still alive, but I don't know. I'm waiting for Wrath to potentially change that, and I hope that they make it. But I'm so interested to see where this is going to go, just because the setup here is for a very different battle, and you really do have Corbin. I loved his character growth because I was not a huge Corbin fan. I think that's why, especially the other characters grew on me a lot more. I liked Castle, who was a main character killed off in the first book, and I liked Veratus and Macon. Enjoyed them. I enjoyed Camlin, especially as we got more Camlin. And I liked a lot of the older characters more so than I did like younger characters. But Corbin grew really a lot, and it seemed like normal growth. He was like crazy good with the sword and everything. He's had a lot of training, but even things like that, with him being like crazy good, it's referenced like how many different people have taught him, how much he has trained with different people, and kind of combining all this together. So Gwynne is still, he's not just saying like, Corbin's really good because I need him to, because he's the chosen one. Because as we find out, he's not even really the chosen one. He's a chosen one, but the prophecy is all fake. And so we get a lot of explanation there, but he really is growing. He's not just wanting to do what Michael tells him to do. He's wanting to fight for what's right, fight for his family, his friends, for the banished lands. And so I really do, think that we're of course going to still have the good versus evil battle, but the game has changed. The playing field is very different because Corbin now he knows the truth. He knows that a lot of it's been done, and he blames Michael for quite a lot of it, and rightly so. But he knows that so many of his friends and family have died, all because of this fake prophecy, all fighting for him, believing that he's something that he isn't. We really do get a lot of like just great friendship. Like I said, there's the found family trope just for days, but it's done really well. And it's just the characters feel very lifelike, and all the jokes, the barbs between all these different people learning to get along. We've got giants, we've got Jahar, we've got people from different kingdoms, we've got these different races that hated each other, giant clans that hated each other, and just seeing different people get along and all fight. But it's becoming very clear that definitely everybody's going to have to pick sides, but knowing the sides aren't quite what they seem is just an interesting route to go. Couple of things I want to mention. I'm pretty sure I commented in one of my other reviews about how often people swear by like slicing their hand and mashing their blood together. I'm like, that's a pretty good way to like get a disease of some sort. But there's literally a scene, and it wasn't a bad scene, but there's literally a scene in Ruin where there's a sword that's like shoved into the ground, and like hundreds of people all intermix their blood one right after another, cutting their hand to swear to Corbin. And I'm like, really, guys? Like, that's like, come on, that's not sanitary. That's a lot of different bloods mixed together, all mashed up. I mean, you wonder too, like, what I always wonder is, like, does that, like, they probably use their non-dominant hand, but at what point does that become, like, a problem with every time that you, like, swear something, you've got to slice your hand? Like, everybody's hands are going to be covered in scars, you know? Like, what if it doesn't heal very well? Like, you're probably not cutting deep, but, like, if you have to try to use that hand to fight, you know, because you're in the middle of a war, like, I don't know how well that's going to go. It's not like this is just a John Gwynne thing. That's a really common thing, especially in classic fantasy, but I think of that every time. Like, what if, like, you know, we do see tons of our characters fighting with both hands, maybe a sword and knife. Like, what if, like, oh, well, your hand's really sore and flexing it probably doesn't feel great. So, like, I mean, it's one of those things. Um, that always gets me, seeing that happening a lot. And so it's still, like, I mean, so well done and a lot here. And I do love just kind of the classic feel. And there's definitely a lot more twists here. The book sets up the first book starts with setting up what feels very, very tropey. And this book especially turns a lot of that on its head, where we find out it is a setup and the characters have to make the choices anyway and do what they think is right. And it's just really, really fantastic. I'm enjoying this series immensely. I'm so excited to finish up Wrath and find out how this all ends, because Faithful and the Fallen is very quickly jumping up to probably be joining the ranks of all-time favorite series. Um, I was already predicting that both Ruin and Wrath would probably be 5 stars after Valor, because Valor just stepped up the game a lot, and these books have continued. It's also just fascinating to see an author improving so much as in one series. Like, this is his third book, but Malice had some issues. Valor was a lot better, and then Ruin just shooting out the ceiling. So much happening, a lot of great stuff going on. Just fantastic overall. I really loved this book. I'm loving Wrath so far, and I'm really excited to get to it. It's gonna be fun, and probably also terrible. Not because of the book itself, but because I imagine more of my friends are gonna die. But I honestly, like I said, I've been enjoying this. Let me know your thoughts on anything that I've said, or other like things that you really loved in it. I know I kind of rambled all over the place, but I just had a lot of things I wanted to talk about, and I was trying really carefully not to say anything from Wrath. I think I did, and I'll have to edit it out so that I don't spoil anything for the next book. But very much enjoying this book. Let me know, like I said, in the comments what you think. If you want to chat more about this series or books in general, check the link in the description for the Wizardly Duo Discord. We always have a lot of great discussion there, and we have a couple of other people reading through Faithful and the Fallen right now, so the discussion's been a lot of fun. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and of course, if you'd like to see more of my content, make sure to subscribe.